Hi everyone, it's Aaron from Want to Great. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can save at least 3 hours of time for every new project contract that you create using Make.com. And the scenario that I'm going to show you today uses Notion as well as Slack and Google Drive, but this automation can really be a combination of whatever tools that you use. So whatever you use for your CRM, whether it's HubSpot, Pipedrive, Salesforce, and whatever you use to build your contracts in, or internal communication. Maybe your team uses Microsoft Teams instead. This use case will apply for you. Obviously, I'm going to put the blueprint down below so that you can use this and you can really help automate what you're working on. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to take a look at our full end-to-end make scenario here. In this case, I've labeled it create Google Docs contract from Notion. Notion being used as our CRM for the moment. And Google Docs is where we have our contracts, at least the first iteration of them. And then Slack, which is what we use internally, and Google Drive to store the folders. I am going to be adding one extra piece of this, and I'll build that live for you. So you'll see me actually do a live build here. But let's get started. Before we take a look at this, we'll notice that the trigger is watching a database item in Notion. And this runs every 90 minutes. And some of the concepts here is I've set this as watch database items by the updated time, not created time. Because what I'm doing in Notion in this project database is updating the status of the project to, you guessed it, contract. So status equals contract. So there's a filter here where we're going to grab everything in contract and then only proceed forward with those that are in the contract stage. So let's go to Notion and see how I've set this up. If you see some previous videos, I give a little bit more of an explanation on how this is set up and the type of database item fields that I have here. As we can notice, this is within the OneIntegration database, and this is an example, an integration that I'm going to build internally, hopefully today or tomorrow. And so I'm going to use this as our example today, and we'll go through it. So in this case, the example is create an internal notification whenever a status changes. And this one in particular, it goes to my co-founder and colleague, Marcelo, who takes ownership of some of the pieces of the project, such as the proof of concept, the build, ready to launch, and when it's actually live. So I want him and I want the rest of the team to be notified whenever a project moves into one of those statuses. Let's take a look. I'm going to go through these fields, but real quick, I want to show you, this is actually part of a larger project that I am working on where because we're using Notion for both our CRM and our project management tool, I wanted to build more internal automations for ourselves in order to make sure that the process is working smoothly. I want the rest of the team to be able to quickly adopt Notion, to be able to have it just make sense. And I'm finding that creating these external automations not only are going to save me time when I'm creating a contract, but also throughout the full life cycle of the project. So I have a number of other ones. The one I'm focusing on today with you is this one. Whenever we get to the phase for contract, we're going to create a contract in Google Docs, create a Google Drive folder, and then send a message in sales to me to go in and review the contract and make sure I can turn that around and send it out. So now that we can see kind of what we're doing here, let's go back to Notion, and I want to quickly walk through some of these phases. I am using AI to help me draft the contents of the contract. And I originally was going to build this with the GPT module, but I realized that Notion AI, I'm on the paid plan for Notion AI, does such a great job as well. And I want to be able to use this in Notion for other automations as well, instead of having it limited to just this automation to create a contract. And so the first thing that I did is I actually created additional fields, additional property, 3 of them: an integration scope, a pain point summary, and a purpose and objective. And I'll show you how to add a property. When you go to add a property, you can do an AI custom autofill. and you can start to tell the AI what you're looking for. So let's look at this one, for example. What I wrote here. So I said create a title and a list of tasks for the integration or multiple integrations in scope for this project. The tasks should include 2 to 3 sub-bullets for each integration. Be direct in the scope, focus on the information related to integration builds. Here's an example of the format. So title, application A to application B, and then so and so, so and so, right? So I'm giving it a format. I found this works best, and I play around with this. You can actually make a change, try it on the page before saving, and make sure that it's what you're looking for. Now, where is this information coming from? It's actually coming from this page that I have, which is the default template that I set up. So every time a new project or a integration is set up, I pre-populate it with a template that I can just start typing things in. So for example, in this case, I pre-populated design or discovery, design, proof of concept, build, test, and launch. You can see these headers. So proof of concept, build, test, launch. And I pretty much tell it to tell me or the team what to do so that we're not second guessing. Like everyone knows exactly what to do during each phase of the entire life cycle of this project. So here I just put in discovery. When there's a handoff on a project between sales and product, the right team should be able to be notified to take action. I embedded a Miro board that I just showed you so that any other teammate can come in and see this and understand how this fits into the overall objective. And then trigger based on one integration database item updates, Notion to Slack. So this one's pretty simple. And starting with another blueprint, created a draft. So I'm kind of putting in basic information. Now, this one has not a lot. There's not a ton of information in here already. Usually I am a bit more thorough when I am when I'm kind of putting details in. I have a lot more information, but surprisingly, this already is pulling from the page details and anything else that I've talked about. So I've linked the app directory for Notion and Slack already. I put in a use case. I've defined the client as integrate internal. So it actually is pulling from this. And if I look at the integration scope here, Notion to Slack, update database item, when a change occurs in Notion, cool, trigger notification based on these statuses. So it's pretty intuitive. It's actually working really well. What are the pain points? Lack of automated notification between status changes, unclear handoff. So these are actually really coming in handy and pretty spot on for this integration. Is it perfect? No. Am I going to keep tweaking, editing, and revising these prompts as I get more and more projects? Absolutely. But for the purposes of what I'm trying to do, yeah, this works phenomenally. This works great. I'm not having to remember and try to find out what the pain points are, what the purpose is, or what the scope is. It already lives here, and I'm just using Notion AI to summarize and produce that information. So that's great, right? In theory, I could just copy and paste this and paste it into the SOW or the contract. But why do that when I can automate it, right? And so the end state is actually to duplicate a Google Docs and then merge in the details that I have from Notion. So the AI summarized information that I just showed you is actually going to ultimately end up here in its own file within its own folder for the client. And all of these things are going to be pretty much summarized in. So the way that we do it in Google Docs is as long as you have double curly brackets, this is going to be an attribute or a field that you can merge in from another tool. All right. Pretty straightforward, but very powerful. So you can see in the introduction here, I have customer name. So I've defined an attribute called customer name is experiencing, and then I put in pain point summary, right? So AI just generated that, and I'm now pulling that information in here. In addition, the purpose and objectives is merged in here. If we keep going, we have the project title, project summary, all these things that the project cost, recurring costs. So all these things are pretty much merged into here, into this template that I already have for this SOW, so that I'm not coming in here and trying to type this in every time or copying and pasting. All of that goes away, and it's all happens based on the trigger for moving this to contract. So when I'm ready to actually have a contract, I will move it here, and now the integration is going to realize, hey, this is ready to pick up, and I'm going to now create a contract for that. Okay, so we have the theory, we have the concept. How did we actually build this? So we saw the first one. Once again, whenever something's updated, I link the database ID, which if you don't know, you can grab the database ID. When you go to integrations, you're going to have a custom string of text and numbers right here. So you just copy and paste that and you put it into right here. I'm limiting 10. Yeah, I shouldn't every 90 minutes. At this point, I hope one day I'll have a lot more, but for this point, in every 90 minutes, I'm not going to have more than 10. And I want to show why I have two Notion databases. So I'm actually going to, let's run this one once. And that new one that we created should pick up and we'll go through. But I want to run it so you can actually see the information that's coming in here. So the main focus is this properties value down here, which gives me all of the information about the database item in Notion, the one that we were just looking at. So I can see the URL that matches with this up here. And one of the first things that I pull in into the Google Docs is the customer name, like what company is this for, right? Which would sit under clients. So if I see in here, it's One to Great internal, right? I do have a client for like a custom one, but this is actually a different database item. So that's linked to this item, okay? But if you notice here, I look in clients and it's just a string, it's just a number. This is not the customer name. So I need to, like, this isn't gonna, I can't pull in a contract with 83F789, right? That doesn't make sense. And so I actually have to use a second one, which is to get a database item, which is getting the client's name, okay? And so how I set this up is I simply put in like, hey, I merge in, hey, here's the client's name, and or here's the database item ID, which is the client name, and I'm mapping it, and I want you to give me the information about this other database. And specifically what I want is the company name, which you can see right here in plain text under company name is One Great internal. All right, so now that we have all the fields that are in Notion on the project, I also have the client name in here as well. I'm now ready to start taking action. Now, one of the first things that I'm doing is I'm searching for an existing client folder. So there's times when I'll create a client folder through a different automation before we get to the contract. Let's say I create a proposal, or I'm talking about doing discovery and I need to put some files and documents into a Google Drive folder. I don't want to duplicate, I don't want to create a new folder if it already exists, okay? Now, let me talk about this folder really quick. So in our Google Drive, we have, yeah, so we have in our shared drive, we have a folder. I'm not going to open it because it has all our clients' names, but we have a folder 00, so it's always at the top, clients. And this is a folder with a bunch of folders for each of our clients, right? So that's how we keep organized. We have clients, so in this case, it'd be client 00, or it would be the client name, internal automate, and yeah, whatever project it is. Yeah, it want to create internal, right? And so I want to first create a client folder if it doesn't exist. So what this is doing is it's searching and it's trying to see, hey, is this WannaGreat internal? Does it exist? And it told me the number of bundles is 0. So let's see what happened here. Okay, so it means that it did actually exist. So the number of bundles is 0. And then I have a filter that says only proceed forward if the bundle is 0. Okay. It actually didn't work. Give me a second. Okay, with some light troubleshooting, I think I figured it out. Let's see if I got it right. So essentially what happened was, notice that I'm using the set variable in make, and what it's doing is it is creating a variable called client folder ID, because I'm going to ultimately put the Google Docs into that folder that was just created. and I'm using the value for folder ID up here, right? However, I have two set variables, and so this is kind of a rookie mistake, but always good to test. I built this yesterday and haven't tested it, so part of the process of building an automation. So I noticed that it did go up here. Let's go back to the history where we can see what happened. So in this case, it uh, went up here and it created a new folder. So the folder didn't exist, and the name was one to great internal, awesome. And then it set the variable for this folder ID. So that's good. So it created it and it stored it in this variable. And then down here, I went to go get the variable, right? And so I said, hey, give me the variable that was up there for client folder ID, but it turned out that it was empty, but it should not be empty, right? Well, the reason is because I also have this route here where it went through the top part and then it came down to this section here and there was no, it pretty much overwrote what this variable was. So this variable existed as this, and then this variable had nothing in it because um, it pretty much overrid it, right? So in this case, there's no bundles, and so there is nothing to pull. So the client folder is empty. So how do we fix this? Well, we are going to create another filter so that this module, the set variable, does not run if this one runs. And we do that by pretty much creating a filter, but in reverse. So what I'm going to do is copy that. This is number of bundles equals to 0. And what I'm going to do here is set up another filter. So only proceed if this does exist. And I'm going to find this, and total number of bundles is, let's see, is, we'll do, instead of equals to, we'll say is greater than, so it's greater than 0, right? All right, so in this case, it would have been a 0, so it would not have continued through this route. It's going to continue this route, but it's not going to go here. So this is not going to override the variable that I've already set up there. Okay, let's make sure we save this. And I'd love to run this again so I can keep explaining. But since I'm going to choose where to start. So I'm going to choose manually, select the latest one that I just had. This is it. Click OK. Run once. This is going to go through the whole scenario again, except that notice what happened. Since it already created the folder in the previous run, it did not go through this this upper flow, but it went through the lower flow and it was able to set the folder ID there. So this is good. We only wanted to route to the top or the bottom. So silly me did not create this filter, but with the filter, it'll be in the blueprint that I'll share with you below. So anyway, so once it went through the top piece, now it goes through the bottom section here. And so, as I said, we're getting the variable. So I want to grab that variable from there. And then I'm going to create a Google Docs from a template. This is probably incredibly underrated. Make module or scenario or whatever, but it's creating a Google Documents from a template. And essentially what I've done to configure this is I put in the template ID up here, which you can find from a folder path, or you can grab the template ID. And what it is doing is it is using that template, duplicating it, so creating a new Google Docs, and then it's going to merge that information in, right? So we can start to see here's the different values that are all merged in. And I'd love to show you, let's see, can I click into here? Yes, awesome. Okay, so what it's doing is it's going through and you're going to notice all the curly bracket, the double curly brackets, show up here automatically as values. So yeah, I don't have to do anything. It just automatically appears. It looks in the Google Docs and says, show me everything with double curly brackets. And all I need to do is map in the value, right? So in this case, we have the customer name, which we got from the very second module where we're grabbing the customer name. and this is pulling in from here, plain text. So this is this value here, and it continues forward into into essentially a mapping from the original Notion database results, right? So I'm pulling the pain point value summary, which we got from the very first one under here, pain point summary, pulling in the plain text. We have the project title, project cost, recurring cost. I can keep updating this depending on how our business processes evolve and change and what I want to pull in from here. And even if I want another source as well, if I need to pull in information from somewhere else, I can. What I'm doing is I'm getting all the data up front and then being able to merge it in here to the Google Docs at the end, right? And I'm titling this so it's everything's the same, SOW, want to great, and then the actual company name. Cool. So excited to show you what this one actually looks like. But before I do that, I needed this to notify myself. So I want to be able to take action. This is where a human element of this automation comes into play. The next step is for me to go ahead and and actually look at this document and start to make the tweaks, edits, and revisions that I need. So what does this do? Sends a message to my Slack channel. So let's take a look at what this looks like. Here's our sales channel. And here it is. So Aaron tags me. I got a message. A new SOW is ready for your review. I can simply click that link and be taken right to the contract. So notice things are merged in. So if I compare the two, for customer name, this is the customer name. There's still things I need to put in here, like customer address, which I don't have. But notice this is the pain points. So Want to Great Internal is experiencing, and it's putting in some details about it. Now, in this case, I would probably continue to make some tweaks. What I would be doing is I would start kind of editing. So editing is very quick if you have the main content in here, right? So experiencing a lack of automated notification systems for handoffs, the needed notifications based on status changes will be, yeah. And then the purpose is to create internal notification. These notifications will be sent to here. So I'm starting to give kind of more understanding. So you can start to see like what it created is starting to pull in here. The format is not perfect. That's okay. I'm not too worried about this. It added some information that I don't need in here. That's fine. All I have to do is delete. This is minutes instead of hours of work. It pulls in the project task fee in here. This one is internal, so $0 for one-time cost, $0 for internal. You can start to see, I'm really starting to pull this in. It's all pre-populated. All I need to go in is tweak, revise. Now I can export this as a PDF and get it into my client's inbox and out for signature. So that's our summary. I'm excited for you to use this. I'm very curious if you have other sort of CRMs or project management tools or other communication tools that you have. If you wanted to see another version of this with another tool, I'd be really interested to see how you build this. So leave a comment. Absolutely would love for you to subscribe. I'm trying to grow this channel, but I hope you got value out of this. So yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks everyone for watching. This is Aaron from Want to Great. Take care.